You might say that drumming's in my blood. Drumming goes back in my family lineage to as far back as the Civil War. I had a great uncle who played snare drum in a regiment of the Louisiana Confederate Army. From then, it went down to my grandfather and his two sons, my dad and my uncle, also played. I have 3 other brothers in my family, and 2 of them play drums as well as me, and now my 3-year-old son. And I got into kid playing, following in my brother's footsteps. He had played in rock and roll bands, so I played in rock and roll bands for a few years, and eventually made my way to New Orleans. And I found steady work as a freelancing drummer in the French Quarter area. One night during this time, I got a call from a friend of mine, John Magny, who then was playing Monday night piano night at Tipitina's down in New Orleans. And he asked me if I'd come by and we'd get together and sing some old songs, have some fun. But it was mostly just to feature our vocals, our harmonies. And he also had called up Tommy Malone and Johnny Allen. And Tommy had this old beat-up tambourine with the head on it. And I picked it up and started playing on it, and the gig went really good, and we had a good time, and everybody there was saying it was really special, but we didn't think nothing of it. We did it just for fun. And later on that night, we went back to my house and listened to the tape of the performance, and we were all completely blown away. The harmonies, the grooves, the feeling were great, but in particular, the sound of this tambourine was just blowing everybody away. After a couple times playing, it became obvious to everybody that it wasn't just a fluke this one night. This was something pretty special that happened. That was the birth of the Subdudes.
Welcome to Atlantic 220, known as the Subdudes!
So all of a sudden I went from playing full kit to just playing tambourine. And it was kind of ironic for me because I always aspired as a kid to be a drummer and be able to do all those things I'd seen famous drummers do. And all of a sudden I'm playing simple rhythms, taking rhythms from the drum set and applying them to the tambourine. And because the tambourine is such a simple instrument, the sound of it ends up coming out real primal and jungle-like. So from all these experiences over the past 10 years and feedback from all my friends wanting to know how I do what I do, I've decided to come over here and share this with you. From what I do, there's no production tambourine made, so I basically have to take a regular tambourine modified for my own application. So here we go. Rip that off here, and we're going to take this apart, and I'm going to show you a few things that I do to make this thing rock and roll worthy. I'm going to make a few modifications to help the head stay together longer, to help it stay in tune longer, and to help the shell of the tambourine last longer, to help the whole thing last longer. And voila! Now that we got all the tuning mechanisms off, we're going to take this head off here. And what we're going to do is we're going to go around the head, all around the head, kind of pull it, get it kind of loose sounding. And as you can see, there's a small crack in between the head here and the collar that it goes into. Now, normally in a regular drum head, that would be filled up with some epoxy or some kind of glue, but being this wasn't made for the kind of abuse that a drum head is made for, they never bothered to fill it up with epoxy or any kind of glue. So we're going to take super glue and apply a thin bead all the way around. First of all, we're going to take a small piece of tape and cover up this little seam right here, because if we don't do that, the glue will leak out and you'll have a mess. And you won't be able to take your head off the floor, it'll just be glued there. So I also like to point out that this is a plastic head, and this seems to work better for the application I need. Sometimes you can get tambourines with natural heads, but those things are subject to temperature and moisture, and this isn't. So we're going to put a thin bead. See that glue going down that hole there? All right. Oh, I also like to point out that this is regular super glue and not super glue gel. Regular super glue just, it's more liquidy and falls into that crack a lot easier. So now that glue is dried, sounds good. We're ready to put this thing back on the tambourine here. So, thusly, and begin the tedious process of putting all these little tuning guys back. Okay. In a cavern, in a canyon, excavating for a mine, dwelt a miner, 49er, and his daughter Clementine. Oh, my darling. Okay, now all the tunes are on. Now I'm gonna check to see the tension of the head here. And I'm gonna go ahead and push on it to make sure it sits up underneath the rim a little bit better. That'll loosen it up a little bit. You notice that the tone of the head has dropped a lot. And that sounds good. That's about the tension I like to keep it at. It's not too loose. You can see it's no wrinkles in the head. What we're gonna do next is to keep it in tune and not fall into pieces. We're gonna tape each one of these little tuning mechanisms here. Now, how we do that is we're gonna take a piece of duct tape. Thank God for duct tape, by the way. This thing got more uses than any product on earth. And we're gonna, let me show you here. We're gonna put tape on these little tuning gears here, mechanisms. We're gonna put it onto the shell here, over the claw that goes around the shell. Tape that down. Then we're gonna pull it over and kind of tuck it behind this screw here. And then pull it over, squeeze it together. And we're gonna do that to every one of these things. Now that we finished taping up all the tuners here, one more small thing. All these jingles are held on by a small nail, and you can see the nail here. And we have to tape those too, because from the stick constantly hitting the tambourine, they loosen up and fall out, and if you don't tape it before you know it, your jingles will be all over the floor. So we're gonna take a small piece of tape. It's a really tedious process getting this thing ready, but necessary. Oh, by the way, I figured this all out just from trial and error and the experience of having tambourines fall completely apart on me. So it just I just learned how to do it for my own special needs. A lot of jingles, a lot of nails flew out, a lot of jingles fell off of me during the middle of songs, and a lot of tuners end up flying off, and that was the end of the song for the tambourine. It's sounded like shit after that. Now is a very important part. I'm going to take some tape and roll it up, and I'm going to make a pad here, a slight little pad. And what that's going to do is protect the shell from the blows of the stick. If you didn't do that, what would happen was, from the constant abuse, the integrity of the the bearing edge of the shell would be lost. And when that happens, you lose all tone. Everything just sounds dead, like a big old box. And we don't want that, so we're going to do this. I'm going to take that tape and roll it up. So, all right. I'm going to put this. I like to put it halfway around from where the hole is, incidentally, because I like to keep my finger in here. It just makes it easier to control when I'm shaking and pounding. So we come, I hold it like this, put the hole right there. So I want to put that little pad right there, and I'm gonna roll up some more tape. I'm gonna make about a 4 or 5 inch pad with this. Make sure that the stick doesn't hit the shell of the tambourine at all. I should be able to make all my hits come in this area. So, okay, we're gonna put that on the edge here. We want to stick it as far to the edge as possible to allow for the head to have as much area to vibrate as freely as possible. Make sure it only comes up to the edge of the shell of the tambourine here. Then we're going to take yet more duct tape and tape this down so it doesn't fly off. Now that I showed you how to modify the tambourine, I'd like to tell you a little bit about the stick I use. Originally, I started out playing with just my hand, but after playing that all night and not being able to use my hand for a week, I used a variety of things, a drumstick, and usually that was too hard, it would dent the head. And I actually used a wooden spatula for a time, and one night I lost my spatula right before a gig, and in a panic fit, I ran to my stick bag and got one of these things out. This is what's called a blast stick, and essentially it's a brush, but instead of wires being made out of metal, they're made out of plastic. And this one's modified here for me to use already, and this is what they look like when you buy them in the store. They come in a pair, and they usually cost around $15. So if you put the cost of a tambourine and these together, you're looking at about a $40 investment altogether. But I modified this using racket grip tape here, and that's to hold on to it, obviously, when I'm sweaty, and it just feels real good having something nice and soft to grab there. And I also used a little duct tape here, about 3 inches from the end here, and that's to keep the bristles from spreading apart. What that does is give me more sharp, focused attack. And one more thing is, when these things are new, they tend to be a little hard in the end, so you want to soften that up a little bit. What I usually do is just go outside in the concrete and take a hammer and like just hit about the last 1/4 inch of them and soften them up a bit. And that's it. Now that I've shown you how to prepare both of these, it's time to get some sounds out of this. This part, I'm going to put my microphones on the tambourine here. This is what I use live with the dudes. I'm going to talk about that a little bit later. Right now, I'm just going to show you how I get my sounds, and I'm going to explain to you what a really simple idea this is to play the tambourine this way. Really simple. It's so simple, my 3-year-old son could even do it. First thing you want to do is the way you hold the tambourine. You want to make sure that the fleshy part of your thumb is
kind of like just touching the edge of the head here. And that's resting softly against the head, but not applying any pressure. So when you do that, it gives like a big, low, thumpy kick drum kind of sound, like this. Okay, let's go to the other extreme now. I'm going to make like a snare kind of crack sound. For that, what I'm going to do is I just put my thumb as far toward the middle as I possibly can, apply as much pressure as I can, and at the same time I'm going to give a little snap of the wrist. And what that's going to do is just like simulate the sound of loose snares. Okay, now I'm gonna do both of them here. Remember, it's as easy as taking your finger off and putting it right back down. Just off, on, off, on, off, on, off. Kick, snare, kick, snare, kick, snare. Okay, now that we got the kick and snare taken care of here, I'm going to show you how to get my tom-tom sounds, and that's really simple. All you do is, keeping the same amount of pressure on your thumb, just slide it out toward the edge, like this. You notice that the sound is descending in pitch. All right, now I'm going to incorporate all three things in here. I'm going to put the snare and kick together and try to incorporate some tom-tom sounds to give you a little idea here. Also, one thing to remember is when you tap your leg like this, it causes the jingles to sound. And so whatever way you tap your foot, the jingles will interact with the sound of the head that way. So I'm gonna try to show you a little bit. First, I'm gonna incorporate the jingles in on the 2 and 4 on the snare. I'm gonna play quarter notes. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, along with that same groove I just played for you. 1, 2, 3, 4. Then I'm going to show how to put eighth notes, which is 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. It's just 2 beats for every count is what it is. And then toward the end of this little demonstration, I'm just going to kind of go outside and like play every other eighth note to show you some possibilities that you could do. Okay, here we go. Play along now. incorporate some tom-tom sounds in here. Quarter notes in the jingles. Here comes eighth note jingles. Do broken eighth notes on the jingles. One thing you have to think of when you're doing this is you have to incorporate all the sounds into one hand, which is your striking hand, and use your other hand to manipulate the tone of the head. That's the key. That's the key to doing all this. Once you learn how to do that, it's just a matter of playing what you feel in your head. I'd like to show now how I follow certain instrument leads to come up with grooves of songs. For instance, Light in Your Eyes. Tommy had this riff on guitar. I just played exactly what he played on the guitar, right, and tambourine. It sounds like this. How I came up with the groove for Any Cure. That's Johnny came up with this bass line at the beginning, and it's kind of a call and answer thing. He plays a lick, and I come back with a hit, and after that one little section, we lock in for a little piece, and that is, I try to lock in the bass drum sound with what he's doing exactly, so we end up with this real tight, punchy sounding groove. So. I'm going to sing the bass line here. It sounds something like this. Big Chief, John Magny plays the signature line on this old Professor Longhair song, and rhythmically I follow him verbatim and goes something like this. He starts it off with. Another thing I like to do to help me keep a good groove is to watch people that are dancing really good, and if they have a good rhythm and really dancing with the way I'm playing, I could usually kind of dance to them myself. And what this does, it forces me to use my legs, and it really adds a lot of nuances that really makes the groove feel a lot better and more danceable. One of the questions I'm asked most in all my travels with the subdudes, beside why I wear my bandana on my leg, is about my miking system here. And I'm going to take this off and show it to you. What it is, first of all, it was developed by a guy named Chris Taylor, who was a former sound man of Dudes. He basically took a guitar capo and modified it, put wire in it, and attached these microphones, which are Shure SM98 microphones, and there's one above the head and below the head. Now the one on top, I usually EQ it to accentuate the low end, and the one on bottom I use to accentuate the high end. And just a combination of two mics gives the sound man a lot of possibilities. And the reason I wear a bandana is to keep from getting holes in my pants. Okay. So although I've been playing tambourine with only one group for the last 10 years, I want to say that it's possible to play almost any style of music with this thing. And from disco to reggae to swing to whatever you could think of, really. So I hope all of you out there really got something out of this video, and I really sincerely hope that somebody could take it a step beyond. But if you do, you better let me know about it.
We're gonna do one that's called All the Time in the World. Make a lot of noise. Yeah! I got all the time in the world. I got a sweet love and that is a good girl. You need a minute, take your time. You need an hour, baby, you can borrow mine. 'Cause I got all the time in the world. Buying time, they say, is a dangerous thing. You never know exactly what the time will bring. Just move along, not too fast. Try to make the good times last. I got all the time in the world. I got all the time in the world. You know what I'm talking about? I got a sweet love and that is a little girl. You need a minute, take your time. You need an hour, baby, you can borrow mine. 'Cause I got all the time in the world. So you left home. You didn't tell a soul, huh? Tell you what, I'm hungry when I wake up. I'm sleeping when I eat. The only time I feel good is when I've got a little dirt under my feet. I don't mind fast food as long as I can eat it real, real, real slow. And I'm gonna have me some hard times, but Lord, I'm gonna live them way down low. Leaving town, you told me, baby, on a big freight train. I should have known from the sound of your sad refrain.
Thank you very, very much.